Thanks for tuning into the Hidden Tracks podcast. You can find us wherever you find podcasts or listen to music. When you have an opportunity, please give us a 5-star review, write a little note, tell us how we're doing. We really appreciate it. It helps us keep this thing going. If you want to reach out to us, you can find us at Facebook at Hidden Tracks. Instagram is at HiddenTracks99, and if you'd like to send in submissions or talk to us or give us any feedback about what we're doing, our email is myhiddentracks99@gmail.com. Thank you so much again for tuning in, and I hope you enjoy the show.
What's up, everybody? Another week, another edition of the show. This week I have Carter Brady, a multi-talented artist out of New York. Again, me diving through Bandcamp, came across it, listened to it 5 times, 5 different ways, immediately reach out, and here he is today. So, Carter, welcome so much to the show. Thank you for everything you've done with your music. So glad that you agreed to do this. Some weird stranger with a podcast just reaching out to you and you saying yes is a good thing, like we just talked about before we hit record. But thank you so much for everything and welcome to the show.
Shane, likewise. Thank you so much for having me. And like I said before we hit record as well, I never like to turn these things down. It's always a great opportunity. And honestly, I just love to talk music with other like-minded individuals, and it's just really fun. And it's a great place to just share fun ideas and chat about everything.
Yeah, and I mean, we're going to dive right into this, right away. And with the music you create, and you do record a lot of all the instruments yourself, and putting out music, and you're doing it very much that old school DIY way. And when it comes to, like, there's pigeonholes nowadays. You have to fall into some sort of algorithm. You need to fall into a playlist. You need to fall into something. What would you technically say, without me having to pigeonhole you, where would you say your music aligns with the genre labeling that is so prevalent today?
Yeah, I think I would say after years of kind of developing my sound as a solo artist, I would probably say a mixture of like self-reflective 90s nostalgic alternative rock with a lot of melancholic yet uplifting pop feels, and also sort of that like more modern 2000s like modern indie pop rock that kind of has been emerging the last few years. I'm someone that just loves all music, and so I try to incorporate that into everything, but also I found a way to find myself more direct in what my sound can be as a predominantly like a rock artist. And definitely like to, I would say that's probably the best way to sum it up, kind of that 90s plus more modern indie feel.
Yeah. Now, with all those, labels you just gave yourself, do you feel that it's beneficial to your music creation that you don't just fall under one genre label, as in, someone's an emo artist and then they feel they have to create the same sound over and over again? Do you think you have the license to just create all different kinds of stuff because you're not trying to fit into a playlist or algorithm?
100%. Yeah. I think I really allow myself to make what I want to make. And if there's something that isn't typically the sound or falls within the sound that I typically create, and it just comes out one night and I decide to finish the song or finish an idea, record it on Logic, I don't limit myself to doing those things. And like I said, I've done a lot of different genres, and I studied jazz guitar in college. And so like I think a lot of those things have like formulated, like, even though I take on a more simpler approach with things with the rock, I would say, yeah, it allows me to really be more open minded to like making things that could be a little different. And I'm really trying in the future as well to just try to be as innovative and always find something new on an album and do something I hadn't done previously. And I try my best to challenge myself. Obviously, it's easier said than done for everybody out there, but that's what I definitely always try to do.
Yeah. And, do you feel that maybe there's some sort of a pitfall that could come, especially in today's day and age, where it's like this whole singles game, right? You got to put out a single, every month to keep people engaged. But also having that diversity in stylings of creating songs, that if someone finds you on one playlist and then they listen to your next song and it's completely different than the sound that they heard from the first one, do you think there's any major pitfalls to maybe changing up things sometimes?
I think that's a great question. I think it's like you said to start, like it's people, at least labels, the algorithm, the industry wants you to be, categorized under one genre because it's easier to consume the media. It's easier for the audience to recognize what you're doing. But like you said, it can sometimes like put you in a box and make you feel like you can't do anything about it. I think for me, I've been very fortunate. While certain means of there's benefits to being on a label or having certain support of like, oh, like you get the funding, but at the same time, as you know, the label might force you in a direction and keep you doing that same emo rock genre and only allow you to be the one label. So I think the one benefit of being an independent artist doing DIY approach is you can make whatever you want whenever you want. And obviously it might have an effect, but at the same time it allows you to be a little more free. So I think, yeah, as far as singles go, I have released singles and then released albums, but even, for example, the most recent album I released, Shopping Cart, last June, a lot of the songs I never released as singles. And I knew doing that meant like, oh, well, some things can get lost in translation and it's not something where everybody's going to take the time these days to listen to a full album. And so you do take that risk, but I think I'm writing all the time. And so like, I just want to get stuff out. And I'm someone that like recognizes the benefit of the singles and knowing it's still necessary to an extent, but I'm not afraid to just rip out like a 13 song album if I have the songs ready for it. And yeah, I mean, it'll at the end of the day, if something doesn't do well metrics wise either, like a certain song and a deep track in an album, it's a resume. It's always going to be there on the platforms for people to hear it later. Let's say one cover or one single pops off, they always there's always that ripple effect potential, which is out there for sure.
Yeah, and I mean, I like your aspect of that. And you brought up this thing that kind of kills me as an older person who grew up loving music, and people not necessarily taking the time to listen to a full album. I mean, and between our age gap, but like, what do you think is the reason that people don't take the time, especially because everyone loves music, right? There's a reason why there's a car stereo in every single car. Like, that was the first thing to be put into a vehicle for everyone, right? So like, can you put your thumb on a reason why people probably or may not take the time to listen to a full album?
Yeah, for sure. I think part of it is, and this is coming from someone that, I also do like marketing and full time I'm actually working in advertising. So like it's one of those things like I'm still have a lot to learn and I'm not fully informed on everything. But as far as the market and like how the media is changing and how we consume media and that also including music, people's attention spans have just gone down so much, even just in the last 5-10 years. Part of that is the introduction of smartphones. And so I think because of it, unfortunate, but like, unless it's Justin Bieber, unless it's like an artist that has had lasting power for the past 10 years, who for sure, their diehard fans are going to listen to a full album of theirs, regardless of it being, their best work or not. I think people are generally the public, at least for mainstream genre, which is pop, they're less open to trying to listen to an album all the way through. And I think they're more so thinking in a playlist mindset of like, oh, what's a good vibe for this party on Friday? And this is not everybody. We know there is that niche audience out there that are still open to always consuming new albums. And it does exist for sure. But as far as the numbers and the greater number of people out there, I think in music, it's a little more limited to the singles. And I really do think it's just due to people's minds and mental states are different. And I think it's just the approach to life is different of, what can I get quickly right here to gratify my dopamine rush on my phone? What TikTok sound can I hear for my next video as an influencer? And it's not bad. It's just an observation I've made over the past few years that I'm sure a lot of other people have noticed too, and definitely continues to evolve and be talked about. But yeah, definitely there's some good to it and some bad, obviously. But yeah.
Yeah, I sometimes feel, for artists to, it takes a lot. You put a lot of work, you put a lot, like your heart, your soul, you give up a lot of time, you give up time with family and friends to create this experience, this immersive experience, which is a full album, 12 songs, 10 songs, whatever. Like, but there's so much that goes into it that so many people take for granted. And that's one of the things that like really bothers me at times when people are like, oh no, I heard one of their tracks, I didn't like them. And I'm like, well, what the fuck is that supposed to? You heard a part of one of their tracks and that band or artist isn't for you. I'm like, that's not how it works. Like, you never know when you're going to find your new favorite band. You just got to give something a try, and that's really hard. We were very fortunate last night for us to have the advanced listening party for the new 21 Pilots album. And
sick.
Over 200 people over 3 hours got to experience this. And it was one of the more gratifying things for myself, because I had a room full of 100 people for the first listening session and no one made a fucking sound except for clapping after hearing the songs. And same thing for the second session. And to me, I'm like, that experience of people experiencing it all together for the first time you're going to hear these songs before they come out next Friday, and everyone honestly taking the time and respecting the artist to listen to the whole thing without judging it by one sound is like, I'm like, I really wish there was more ways to constantly do that and get people together and to have music and listen to it together for the first time and give stuff a chance instead of hearing a track off a record and be like, yeah, no, I don't like them.
I couldn't agree more. No, that's awesome that you're able to do that. I love 21 Pilots. In fact, yeah, like to your point, I agree. I wish more of that existed, not just more people listening to records all the way through and giving it a chance, but also just those moments to give the people a platform to do it in real time like that for the first time. Even someone, I didn't go to the show, but one of my favorite bands, Flycatcher, did a pre-album release show somewhere in like Jersey City, I think, a couple weeks ago. And a producer I'm working with was there because he's best friends with the front man. And so they did just rip their album start to finish. I think it's like 10 songs in like a basement. And it's just like, that's awesome that that stuff's going on. And, for an up and coming awesome band, focus in the rock genre, like you want to see more of that. I'm someone that literally runs to full albums. Like I can do playlists and I have, but it's weird. I just prefer to like be like, oh, like let's throw on Tame Impala Currents for this run, or let's throw on, The Color and the Shape Foo Fighters. Like I'll just rotate out albums. And for me, I like to just get sucked into a vibe and like a flow that I'm sure you're very familiar with. Like when you get into an album, it's just like that flow. You can't really get anything like that. It takes you to another space. And really, it kind of helps me because I feel like playlists, sometimes the vibe can all of a sudden just drastically different depending on the vibe. And sometimes that takes you out of whatever you're doing, as particularly like a run where you want to get almost like in a really just trance state like that, where you kind of separate yourself and just makes the run easier if you're really into it. So,
yeah. And full albums, the majority of them are a complete story, right? You have the prologue, the first chapter, you have the plot, you have the twist, and then you have the great ending. And a majority of albums that have ever been created all have that same story. So it's like you have to listen to it all to understand one aspect of it.
Right.
And that's where sometimes I get, you're never going to pick up a book and start on page 57. Right? You're never going to do that. So why would you do that with an album that was created? So that's kind of my stupid little theory there and my rant. So now for you, as the pivotal moment for me in my life was being 6 years old and hearing the Beach Boys. It was one of the first things that made my ears stand up and kind of think that there was more to what was usually just on in the house or in the car or something. Do you kind of remember as a child the first time you heard music as a very small young child that completely made you more inquisitive of music?
Yeah, so this is like weird because I do have I would say overall I've got a good memory as far as like remembering things back in the childhood days and particularly with music. But it's weird. I can't tell you exactly the first song I've ever heard. And I think that's fair because like a lot of people probably heard it when they were like 2, and like a lot of their memory is, you're not going to remember that. But I think as far as earliest memories, I would love to say it's the Beatles because that's my favorite band of all time. I do love the Beach Boys, but I have a vivid memory of my dad showing me, and I'm 27. So like I still grew up at, in my single digit years of like having CDs in the car before, everything went full on into that new age. My dad showed me Abbey Road on CD in the car. And like, I remember just like being drawn into that. And I'm sure there were other Beatles moments. But I think probably before that, it would have been like the peripheral subconscious listening of like my parents' playlists of like Matthew Sweet, like No Doubt, Lloyd Cole, like a bunch of random like 90s artists, Goo Goo Dolls, like all that stuff that just got thrown in. And I just probably remember hearing these songs, not even knowing who they were, and then hearing them years later and being like, oh, wait, I used to hear that in the car when I was like 4 years old. And so I think that's probably my earliest memory. And my parents kept me very involved. Like my church I went to was very heavy on music and the choir. So I used to do all that stuff. Even like preschool, there was like a church where it was like, it was a music circle and you'd go around and you do all that stuff. So music's been very involved, even if it wasn't the playing of an instrument or actively thinking about it. It's been a part of me for a while. Like I'm sure a lot of others whether they know it or not.
Yeah, and you go from that aspect of hearing the Beatles, and the next big moment is when you kind of find your own music for the first time. And when I say your own music, your own where you think you should be in regard to listening to music. For me, it was, I remember hearing like skate. This is how old I am. We used to trade VHS tapes that had skate videos, and there'd be like punk music and alternative music in it, and it was like you'd all of a sudden see the name of the artist of the song that was playing in the background, and you run out to your local record store and get a cassette or record of it, and then you start listening to it. So like, do you kind of remember like when you kind of found your own little niche group of music that you were going to be excited to listen about?
Yeah, definitely. I would say like somewhere between, like fourth to sixth grade. I started taking lessons in like end of first grade of guitar, and then I switched teachers in fourth grade. Someone that had been in the industry from England that moved into our town and like started learning songs. But as far as like consuming and actively like saying, oh, like I really want to learn this song or this is what I'm going out to listen to, I definitely had that phase of like just the classic rock, AC/DC, Led Zeppelin, just Crazy Train, like all that now we kind of think is more cliche, but like obviously classics that you can't live without that shape the rock music forever and still are timeless classics. I would say those for sure. Green Day, I really leaned into, as I'm sure many others my age. And like I went to go see them on Broadway in 2011 when Billy Joe was St. Jimmy and got his autograph as he left, like stuff like that. So, yeah, I mean, I would say it was a mixture of the classic 60s, 70s, 80s classic rock, and then starting to go into some of the modern stuff. Um, you know, and then kind of just finding my way into more of the 90s and some of the 80s, like indie, like the Smiths and all those classics. But it's really a mixture of it all. I've always tried to keep myself open to everything and just whatever brought me in. I think that would probably be the best sum up of it. But
All right, now you brought up something where first grade you started taking guitar lessons.
yes,
Now, my follow-up question is why?
because my mom thought it would be something fun for me to try out. And it, aside from everything else I was into, that, most kids are into, like just playing with toys and um, running around, all that other stuff. She just thought it would be something that I would be into, knowing that my dad played as a hobby. He never like did it full time. He has like a corporate job now, but he did it. He was in bands. My mom even had a family of people. Her fraternal twin brother played guitar. It's in our family to extent, so it's a familiar thing that she thought, oh well, her and I'm the oldest in the family. I have younger siblings, but she was like, oh well, let me have my oldest son try out guitar and see what happens. And started having me take lessons with my elementary school music teacher that we knew pretty well. And I grew up in a really small town outside New York City, so everyone knew everybody. And he taught me for a few years, and I started just in a songbook with like "Ode to Joy," and it's very basic, as anyone would. But yeah, I really credit it all to my mom for giving me the opportunity to like get into it. And it's one of those things as a kid, you don't really, unless you see something in an aisle or in a window and say, "Mom, like I want to play guitar." It wasn't one of those for me. I think my mom just like signed me up, and that was it.
Wow. Well, yeah, credit to her because, for my era, it was always piano lessons, and we lost so many great piano players because we were forced into something so complicated, so young, and it wasn't fun. So all
Yeah,
credit
yeah,
to
yeah.
her for starting you right on guitar and something cooler instead of, having to figure it out and let time pass. So,
She did
yeah.
have me do a little piano in high school, but I just didn't take the lessons seriously. And I don't know. I know enough. Like if I wanted to be a music teacher one day, I could probably figure out enough chords. But that was one of those things. I think I guess I stopped piano before I got to that point. But yeah, you're yeah, that's true.
Now, when you start becoming a little bit more proficient at guitar and running around, let's go to your probably teenage years. When were you did you go out to find like-minded, like people who are listening to the same stuff as you, and try to find other people playing music to go, start that first ever collaboration known as a band?
Yeah, for sure. So in fifth grade, I started my very first band. We were called Smash. It was me and two other girls. I sang and played guitar. Um, and yeah, we had a singer, and then one of the girls played drums. And we played at like my 11th grade like birthday party out with a slide. Like my mom didn't want to exclude the grade, so like we invited everyone in our grade to our backyard and like did like a whole driveway thing, and friends wrote Smash like SM on their bodies, and just did a whole fun thing. As a kid in elementary school about to go into middle school, that was really a fun first band. And we wrote a couple songs. We have a picture. If I ever hit up I don't keep in as much touch, but they all remember it, and it was a fun first thing. And then moving on from that, I was very fortunate to grow up in a town where there were so many great talented musicians and just a lot of outlets for it. And I think because a lot of parents and people that have been in the town for a while really emphasize fundraisers and giving younger musicians a platform. So whether it be the summer gazebo, or a local theater, or the school doing Battle of the Bands, there were a lot of opportunities for younger kids to get involved. And I think I'm so fortunate to have grown up in that community. And it still to this day is very, very strong, and it keeps getting stronger. So I was in a ton of bands in middle school and high school, mostly cover bands that, of course, you just kind of start learning out the songs that you realize you're into this band. And then you decide to put a set list together, and then you do your Battle of the Bands. Most of the bands I got into, we started playing in high school. My guitar teacher was the one just happened to organize, a ton of these fundraiser shows at like the theaters. And so I got to be a featured guitar player for a couple songs for these old adult groups, but did not play in any cover bands with, younger people my age at the time. And so I think 9th, 10th grade was when I first started playing in those with my people my age, and then started doing the Battle of the Bands and overlapping into those fundraisers that started getting more open to having younger performers at them. And some people were like, oh, the rock, it's too loud for this venue, but like we kept pushing. My guitar teacher kept pushing the limit every year, and eventually senior year we had this big one, and a ton of people my age, so many bands were playing in it. And just very lucky to grow up in that, like I said. And one of them we did do some originals, but yeah, just really had really fun time and really formative time for sure.
Nice. Now, for you, other than, let's say, someone playing at a local church or something, do you remember your very first concert you ever went to and what it was?
Jeez. Yeah. So I don't think I can count. My mom reminds me that I went to a Lloyd Cole concert with her when I was in her belly. So I don't think that counts.
No, you gotta be outside the womb.
I gotta be out.
Question.
Exactly. Yeah. I would probably say, I think it has to be like official concert, Paul McCartney. My dad took me in 2009, I think, when he went back on tour. So yeah, this was the first year Citi Field was a stadium. So yeah, it was really cool. I mean, as I told you, I'm a huge Beatles fan, so definitely was really a great experience, just because I knew all the songs, and just to get to see, a Beatle live was just such a crazy experience. And yeah, I mean, obviously some stadiums, outdoor venues don't always have the best sound, but I think I didn't know what was good and what was bad. And I was, only 10, 11. So I think for me, it was just like, everything was awesome about it. Like there couldn't have been anything bad about it for me. I wish we could have stayed a little longer, but my younger brothers had to get to bed, so my dad took us back. But we stayed for most of the show. I was standing up for most of it. It was really fun. It really was.
That's awesome. Now, besides that, like, do you remember what was the first concert that like you really chose to go to, that like you said, hey, we really have to go to this, or mom and dad, can I go to this? What was the first concert you got to pick on your own to want to go to?
I want to say it might have been Cage the Elephant during their Melophobia tour in 2014. I was a sophomore in high school. They were in Connecticut. I forget what the venue was called, but it's like a dome. And Bare Hands was opening for them. And I think they were local to the area. I just remember the front man's like grandma was in the audience or something really fun and special. That was a great tour just because I love Cage the Elephant. And that album in particular was like the pinnacle of their garage rock sound mixed within some of their newer indie stuff. And that was great. I definitely feel like I was like, oh, like, Dad, we got to go see this. And so I went with him. Definitely some others I'm sure I'm not remembering, but Cage was great for sure.
Do you have a standout concert that you ever went to that's like, I know it's hard. Trust me, it's hard for me because I always pick, it's usually the last show I went to. But like a concert that was just like so good in your lifetime that you're just like, man, that's a pinnacle. That's like one of the greatest things I ever got to, witness.
Yeah, it's so tough to say. I would say Royal Blood's pretty breathtaking just because it's two people and getting to hear a bass, put through so many speakers and make it sound. Obviously, the record's already sound, but you know how it goes with like overdubbing, and no one. A lot of people don't even know it's just a bass. Who hear it for the first time, they think it's just a guitar. But as a musician, like I know the backstory and seeing them live. But I would say Royal Blood at Brooklyn Steel was pretty great in 2018 because they had those two full bodies of work, their first two records. And just hearing them in that raw form was really cool. And I think one of the two I saw them there, their front person, like he broke his leg or something, and he was up there with like basically just like like a boot, and he was still moving around and doing his thing. And the chemistry he has with Ben Thatcher, the drummer, is great. Mike Kerr, I believe, is the bassist's name, who sings. But yeah, that was a great one. I'm sure there's a lot of others.
I think I saw them on that tour. I think I was in Portland, Maine at the time, and I was up there for work, and there was a line outside the State Theater, and I was like, what's going on? And they're like, oh, Royal Blood and Queens of the Stone Age. I was like, and I'm not like the biggest Queens guy, but I was like, oh, I fucking love Royal Blood. I was like, I didn't even know. I just like got there. I was like, well, I know what I'm doing, and got to just go see them in another state at an awesome theater for that tour.
That's great. Yeah, no, I'm the same with Queens. I do love Queens, but they're not like my favorite. But Foo is up there as well, who Dave, I think, found Royal Blood on YouTube and was like, oh, let's have them be there. And I think they had them open before Queens took them as the next opener for their tour. And, Dave and Josh are very close and did the whole, 2002 masterpiece with Dave on drums. So, I mean, Foo is my second favorite band, I'd say. And so, like, as far as live shows, for a rock band in this day and age, I still always tell people I like their 90s stuff better than the newer stuff, but I still love everything that they do for the most part. And live shows, you're always going to get a great experience, and they always play longer than they need to, and they really truly do it for the fans, which is, I've been to see them a few times, and those are always great too.
Nice. Now I want to it's my favorite question to ask on the show, and we're going to dive directly into your music. And the question I love to ask is, if no one ever heard your music, no one knows you meet this complete stranger, you tell them, oh yeah, I'm a musician, an artist, record music, and you had to play them one of your songs that's currently released out into the world, what one of your songs would you play for that person?
Yeah, I think up until I just released a cover of a Taylor Swift song. I wouldn't want to say a cover, obviously. I would want to say an original. I think that whole thing probably I wouldn't recommend it over what I'm going to say instead, just because it's a cover. But I think We're Talking. shocking just because it does, I think, wrap around like enough of an accessible mainstream take on, what, people have been doing for a while and has existed in like the pop rock world in the 80s, all the decades of rock until now. But I think it's got a lot of elements that aren't always done where, the arrangements are very intricate. I think I tried to really build up the arrangements through just being very rock driven and or guitar driven in a way, and then also kind of have just that continuously keep the upbeat yet melancholic feel balance between it. And I think it's one of those things, like I don't always write upbeat songs, but this one happens to be the first song on my album Shopping Cart that I did choose it as the first song because I knew even if there was more grungy stuff later that might not everybody like, it's something that like, oh, well, it's familiar, but it still has like, I guess, my take on what rock is, and still trying to like create somewhat of a refreshing sound to something that's already existed and been awesome for many years. So
now from there, would you put that as, because then there's a follow-up question, like what's your favorite song you've created and released to date?
Man, tough. Like, I definitely, it's healthy for everyone, every artist to like really, be proud of their songs and like everything they do. And obviously that's not the case. There are songs out there some people don't like and are like, oh, like I don't like this one as much. But I think it's so tough. I often, and like I would say probably suppressed, just because I played all the instruments on that one. I don't on all of them, and I don't think that's the reason, but I think it comes from a more personal place, where like I wasn't my best self, and it's sort of about like, yeah, like I'm saying I'm not suppressed inside, but it's sort of like contradictory. It's more of like like very self-reflective. It incorporates the lyrical meaning that still allows to be a bit more just aesthetic. You kind of get a good combination of both. I sort of understand what he's saying, but also this is something that I, can be relatable to a lot of people because it's still general enough. Musically, I feel like it incorporates a lot of things that I love, which are, just like, dynamic changes, starting off with like just acoustic and then tricking. I like to trick out people sometimes in songs where, make them think that they're listening to like a more Elliott Smith, like singer songwriter vibe. And then all of a sudden come in with like Smashing Pumpkins fuzz, guitar and just really banging rock. And yeah, just like kind of showcasing just a bunch of different like arrangements. And that's something I love, is just always showcasing something new. And when writing songs, I want something to continuously be interesting all the way throughout. And that includes like adding new elements in verse 2 of a song and, throwing in these different instrumental bridges and always just being very attention to detail about every single part that I throw into a song. And I think Suppressed, it's not the only one. And like I said, it's hard to pick a song, but I would say because it's a song that I had the full ownership over doing and arrangement wise, I felt very accomplished to put it together in a way that I felt, really flowed and it basically just captures all types of dynamics and arrangements that I would want to do in like a rock song in this particular time of music and stuff I'm creating.
Nice. Now, when you like, the way you describe how you're creating that portion of stuff, and we covered some of like, how things can be simple with pop and everything. Do you think sometimes too, especially with a majority of listeners and their ears, when they hear something, like, do you think sometimes maybe adding too much or overcomplicating something, even though, you know what it's for, why you're doing it? Do you think sometimes you could possibly push people away because there's too much going on? Or is that like not even a thought? You're just like, I'm creating the song that I want to create and hopefully it finds the right ear.
Yeah, I think certain songs serve for more simple arrangements and less is more approach. And I generally try to take the less is more approach in most of my music. At the same time, everyone's guilty of adding too many guitar layers. If you're the one just like sitting in and trying things out, which never bad to try things out, obviously, and take them out later before releasing it for real. But I think definitely less is more can be applied to everything. But some songs definitely serve more of that more isolated individual approach. And I think I try to, throughout albums, I try to go between those two and, have healthy combination of both types of like song approaches and, having that meet of guitars in one and then one being a little less, and just keep creating space. And maybe not as much apparent in Shopping Cart. I think I keep the dynamics slightly more the same throughout, but like still change it up. But in the future, I definitely am trying more and more in the latest songs I've written that haven't been released to, add lo-fi and breakdowns and, stops and just things like that that kind of keep people on their toes and really allow for that. Because whenever lo-fi comes in, whatever comes after that hi-fi hits even more. And so I'm really taking that approach. And I know a lot of really popular bands are really doing that now in like the 2020s kind of era of like modern indie rock. And so, yeah, just trying to model it, but also doing my own thing at the same time.
Now, when you get, and it happens to all of us, so I mean, if it has never happened to you, I mean, I can understand, but I think it probably has at some point. You get to this point of creation and you kind of find yourself in a little bit of maybe a rut or writer's block or just the creative process just isn't working the way it was at some point. A lot of us, we turn to other artists or music to help us get out of a rut. Is there like an artist or band that you listened to when you were in a creative, let's call it a creative lull, where you just couldn't get out of it and you needed some inspiration? Was there something you turned to try to help you get out of that rut?
Yeah, I think the Beatles always comes back just because they're always their songs are so specific and innovative, songwriting wise, and so different. I think if I do feel like I'm in a rut, I can always go back to them, even if I don't sound, and it's so hard to sound like the Beatles because the Beatles are, just so, distinct and great. It's one of those things where you go back and if you do listen to them, you can really, it's a masterclass in how to create a song that's interesting and always doing something different start to finish. And that's not to say every Beatles song is perfect. Every band's going to have or artist is going to have some weaker songs than others. But in general, and while not being too biased, I would say they have so many great showcases of how to write something interesting that's always changing and evolving. And they're, as like they're often credited as being like one of the most uh, evolved bands of all time and just throughout their career. And so that's definitely
in the shortest period of time too.
Correct. Yes, exactly. And so, yeah, it's insane how much they did in so little time, as so many people have mentioned, and it's so true. So I think probably the Beatles for me, just because I used to be the biggest John Lennon fan. I dressed up as him for Halloween, and all things aside, because no one's perfect. It's not like Paul McCartney's a perfect person or whatever, but I would say over the years, as I've leaned more into like learning more instruments and getting better at drums, I lean more towards Paul as the inspiration, just given he is, at least in my opinion, the best musician in the group in terms of his ability to play all the instruments. And just, he was the one that really, at least by reports, drive them to get in the studio and produce as much of the work as they've done. And that's definitely the approach I take. Like, I don't want things to hold me back, whether it's monetarily, oh, I don't have enough money to, record this album. I do whatever I can to fund it. Like I said, I have the 9-to-5 job and just keeping up with that. I definitely take the approach of just, I want to write as much music as I can in the time I have it, while I have the time. And yeah, just no regrets about it. Just do things on your own terms and don't care too much what other people think, and just do your thing and have fun with it.
It's a great attitude to have. A lot of us sometimes get jaded or get pushed in a direction that we ourselves shouldn't be going in. So to just that creative outlet of like, I don't give a shit about like what, I'm just going to do this and that's it. And then I'm moving on to the next thing and moving forward. And that's the big thing. Just keep going forward, keep challenging yourself and into, hey, what can I create next time? What's going to be this next step?
Totally. Yeah. No, it's so true.
Do you remember the last song that you cried to and what it was?
Yeah. I'm trying to think. Because it's so weird how some songs you don't know when it's going to trigger something. And sometimes it's not even thinking about the lyrics. It's just the feeling of whatever that thing is can really create emotion. I think it's not to sound like self-centered about it, but I think sometimes my own songs can, if I am listening back to something that I wrote that came from a personal place, those do sometimes, cause like, emotional responses just given you wrote it. And I do take like the approach of like music can be sort of like a built-in therapy. And those definitely can. I don't know exactly which one in particular most recently, but a band called Mama. I don't know if you're familiar with them,
Yeah.
but
Yep.
they're great and have in the last couple of years really, popped off and not full on mainstream, but they're really getting the recognition they deserve. And I love them. They're great. I've really been inspired by them the past few years. And yeah, like even just like a song like Spire, a deep cut on their album, like let's say the bridge section, I'm on a run and that comes in. It's weird, but like things like that, whether there's a lyric to it or not, that feeling and that progression, for whatever reason, that vibe might just all of a sudden connect to me in a certain way. And I have to hold back tears. I'm publicly running out in the, in the open, and I'm all of a sudden like, oh no, I don't want people to see me cry. And it's like a rock song too. Like, why would you be crying to a rock song? But little things like that, it's like you can't explain why they create those feelings. But I think part of it is just like I know in some way, shape, or form, the music they're writing has that angst to it. And I do think as I've heard them in interviews, like it is coming from a personal place. And so I think I can really relate to that as a songwriter to a songwriter. And I definitely try to take that same approach of like, obviously not every song's going to come from that, place. Some of it's going to be aesthetic, metaphorical, sound good with the music. But if you're able to have a deeper meaning, it really cuts through and people can really, sniff that out for sure.
Now, from having those moments, there is the I call it the guilty pleasure, but all these, there's so much different stuff out there all the time now that it is a pleasure. But I look for something that based upon the artists and bands that we've dropped names about so far on the show. Is there an artist or band that people would be really surprised you get tons of enjoyment out of listening to? I always look at it as like you have that 1 millisecond if someone catches you listening to something that you otherwise think you shouldn't be, type of thing. Like, do you have something that you feel people would be really surprised that you get tons of enjoyment out of listening to?
Yeah. I would say like, I don't know if it's like full on surprise, but like Samia's new record, Bloodless, is awesome. And I don't typically listen to like folk pop as much. Like it's really not my thing.
I think it's fucking great. I think it's great. And that's so weird. Like you bring it up. I brought in a couple copies into our record store and people just like, they're like, oh, I love the cover. What is it? I'm like, you need to buy it. Like you need to listen to that album. Like it's so good.
Yeah, production wise too. Like the songs are obviously great and the people she's worked with are incredible. And she's just got so much raw talent. The production, there's just something, it's on another level as far as, she's working with a great team and like the people that produce that are just off the charts. And I love like so many of the songs on that record really differentiate from her like overall sound in a great way. Like she wasn't afraid to push boundaries with even a song like, I hope I'm remembering it correct, Lizard, I think it's what it's called. It's got such a sick guitar part that I really love to hear from her because it's not something you would expect. And so just going through that record, I really appreciated the concepts and it's all, she says bloodless in one of her songs or even two, I think. And it's like, it is a concept album in that extent. And it's got, someone like me, I feel like I don't have the ability to put on like, minute long or 30-second long interlude songs as filler. She might be a little more have the ability to do it because she's got the recognition, but I appreciate that because I think that's really cool to add that into an album because it is a work of art that you want to add your touch to it and, tell a story oftentimes. And I think she really does a great job of doing that. And like you said, yeah, it's definitely, it's an awesome record.
Nice. Good answer. All right. Got 5 minutes left to live. Meteors hurling into the earth. You have to listen to one song and one song only. What's the song you're listening to?
Everlong by Foo Fighters.
Nice. That was fast. I love that. Means it's the right answer. All right. to stay on the morbid trail, let's say your house unfortunately has just gone ablaze and all living things, everything, all living things are safe and sound outside. And you have this moment to run inside and grab one musical item, whether it be memorabilia or something musically that means a lot to you. What's that one thing that you're going to grab?
Oh man, that's really tough. So I'm actually in my music room in my family's home right now, where I used to like spend the majority of my time. And I come home, from the city. I'm looking at the musical instruments and like obviously, it's all stuff at the end of the day, but at the same time, I think it's either for me, my very first guitar ever that is a piece of crap, but like it's just one of those things like I it's why I wouldn't be playing guitar if I didn't have it. Even if it's not for recording purposes, it's probably the most sentimental in that regard. But if it were like this is my prized possession of most everything I've recorded on and I continue to play on, it's probably my 1979 Gibson ES335 that I originally got in senior year of high school during the time I was doing jazz guitar auditions. And it's a very versatile guitar. You can play rock, blues, anything on it really, even though it's got that warmer pickup sound. Probably one of those two if I had to pick something. But again, it's so tough because you don't want to lose that stuff. Obviously, things can be replaced, but I think those two things would probably, given I'm predominantly a guitar player, I'd have to say one of those.
All right. And do you have like I don't know, an album or a piece of sheet music or something that like is extremely special to you? Like for me, I have records, like certain records that I know I would have to like that would it's like the possessions of music memorabilia that I would never sell that I've obtained throughout my many years on this earth. Do you have anything that is just like your prized music memorabilia thing in your life?
Yeah. So this is gonna sound kind of crazy. I do have a Beatles Third State Butcher cover that I got for decently cheap on Live Auctioneers a bunch of years ago. That obviously they don't make them anymore, and I'm a huge Beatles fanatic, and I've collected so much vinyl over the years. But that's one of those like it's rare, and I wouldn't want to lose it, even if it's not for the listening factor. Although it is a pretty good record, even though it wasn't an official release. It has a lot of Rubber Soul. It's got Yesterday. It's got Revolver on it. It might be that one if it's a record. For music, sheet music, I have a lot of like old transcription pieces from college that I did where I wrote out like a solo for like a Wes Montgomery song, 4 on 6, stuff like that. I wouldn't want to lose. Before that, in high school, I took lessons with a classical player at a secondary music school called Hoff Barthelson. And I actually still take lessons with him, Peter Press, occasionally, and we take mandolin together. He had given me a ton of sheet music for Django Reinhardt that I used to learn his memory pieces like Swing 42. And so I wouldn't want to lose those either. I think that was so formulated for me in that era of like learning guitar. And I would be pretty bummed if I lost that. So
Yeah, there's so many like little things. Like I'm sitting here in the studio and like I have some of my like prized pieces always around me. Like I in my hand because I always have to touch it sometimes. It's like my calming thing. I have an autographed Eddie Vedder basketball card of the ilk of the 1989 NBA hoops thing. That's like it's one of those things that's like when I'm just hanging out, leaning back in the chair, having a great conversation about music, I always grab them here. And I'm like, yeah, this might be one of the things that is absolutely, it'll fit in my pocket. So I don't have to worry about holding it in my hand. But yeah, it's little
awesome.
things like that. Yeah.
I didn't know. I actually didn't know Eddie Vedder. There was like a basketball card. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, they did, it looks like the same colors of the Nets did in 1989 because they were, originally called Mookie Blaylock after number 10 Mookie Blaylock on the New Jersey Nets. So like they made the card and he's jumping on stage and it's an autographed certified card from Eddie Vedder and he doesn't sign a lot. So it's one of those things that is crazy that I get to stare at all the time.
That's pretty sick.
And he's like the last Seattle person who is still alive that I say we should just put him in a bubble so nothing happens to another great Seattle vocalist.
Right. No, I know. Exactly.
Well, we're coming in on our time here, and before we move to our final segment, I'd love to give you the opportunity right now to give a message to listeners that may have never heard you before, or fans that have heard of you, and just tell them how to find your stuff, throw out your handles and where they can listen to your music and where they can actually purchase some of your stuff to support you, because just like everything else, everything costs money to keep going doing what you love. So love you to take this opportunity now to do that.
Awesome. No, thank you, Shane. I appreciate it. And also, just first off, I think it's so awesome that you found me on Bandcamp, because I don't hear that from a lot of people, and I think it's great that to hear that people are finding artists, more indie artists like on Bandcamp, and it is a place where you can purchase someone's work, and I wouldn't say I'm making a ton of money on there, but it's great, obviously, that Bandcamp allows artists, smaller undiscovered artists, to have that opportunity. And so really think that's great that you found me on there. I immediately heard that. I was like, that's sick. But yeah, so as far as to those listening, you can check me out on any social media account, really. I predominantly post the most on Instagram, Carter Brady Music Official. It's the same handle for TikTok and YouTube Shorts, or my YouTube channel. So TikTok, same thing. I post pretty much the same content on all of those. And I try to post pretty regularly as a content creator, and sometimes music, sometimes not, at least my original music. And so, yeah, I'm pretty active on socials. If you ever want to go on there, you'll hear unreleased content. You'll hear, you'll get content of sounds of stuff that's on Spotify and all those streaming platforms. I do have decent sized YouTube following. You can go check out all the music videos on there. My last album, Shopping Cart, I actually released a music video for every single song. I know that sounds absolutely ludicrous. Why would you do that? How did you do that? But I just did it because I love music videos, and I'm a film nerd. So you can check out all those videos. I've got some fun self-produced documentaries where if you want to see the behind the scenes action of how I created albums, talking about my music and everything else, go check that out. I do have the Bandcamp. And if there is interest, I'm definitely considering a Patreon in the future to have you guys be involved in the process of helping me pick what to release next. And you get a vote. And that's my next step, is putting that together. And I probably would start at subscription at like $5 a month, like keep it really, really cheap, but at least something to support my endeavors in creating my next releases. And I have a ton of unreleased music I'm really excited to share with you guys this rest of the year and next. And in order to get it out, I'll probably need to do a crowdfunding campaign, but even just Patreon would be really helpful. And I want to make sure it's worth the money as well. And I'll definitely be not just doing that unreleased, but also getting out some guitar videos of any songs if there's requests, or just giving music industry advice, all those things that I know would be helpful to you all. That's not just what can you do for me. I want to help you guys as well. And I'm very much that kind of person. I try to be very selfless, and just, it's all about just working with everyone and having fun, and connecting in the music world. It's great. There's so many great people out there that I haven't met, and it's all about networking and enjoying it. So yeah, hope you follow me on socials there, and check out my recent release of Taylor Swift's August. I did a rock cover that just came out August 31st. So that was really fun to put together, and definitely check that out, and Shopping Cart and everything else. So
well, awesome. Now we are in our final segment. It is our weekly 3 segment. It's 3 things that you're listening to right now that you would like people to check out. You get to give your 3. Then when you're done, I give my 3 things that I'm listening to.
Okay. And this could just be anything you're listening to, obviously.
Yeah, anything you're listening to. You don't have to like try to be cool and pull something obscure, and just 3 things you're listening to that you're enjoying that you'd like people to listen to.
Okay. So Mama's new record, pretty new record from April. Rodeo is probably my favorite. I listen to that along with the album, but probably Rodeo is my favorite on that album. Been listening to a lot of Oasis. I always come back to Morning Glory, which is kind of a deep track these days, because I feel like Americans only know Wonderwall and like those top ones. But I would say Morning Glory just absolutely hits no matter what. That's a great one. if I'm listening to Morning Glory on a run, that one I always, when it comes on, I'm like, this is just a banger. Those
so
two.
why they only played What's the Story Morning Glory for the US tour that I was just at, because that's what they think. That's all we know. Meanwhile, I just wanted more deep tracks, but
Right, exactly. Yeah, no, and I wish I could have gone to a show. I know they just played at MetLife, and it's awesome that Liam has, really taken it seriously. And, even though he's not going to sound like his 90s Liam, it's still like, he still sounds amazing. And you can
he
tell.
sounded fucking brilliant. He was, listen, he was amazing. He was absolutely, I was blown away by his performance. So.
Yeah, and I videos don't do it justice. Like like you have to be there to hear it, and it's awesome to hear and see how great he's made a comeback with it. And that Oasis track for sure. And then I don't know if you know this band Eliza and the Delusionals. They're a little under the radar, but they're like an indie pop rock band. I discovered their album Now and Then that came out in 2022. And that, along with Household Name, I used to just rip on runs that summer a ton. And so their first song, Give You Everything, is a great track that I feel like I always come back to. Recently listened to the album start to the finish again, and I was like, wow, this is just production, songwriting, everything is awesome. They're an Australian band. That definitely, I highly recommend those that don't know Eliza and the Delusionals, go check out that album in particular.
Nice. All right, my 3 for this week. My first one is The Beth's new album, Straight Line Was a Lie. New Zealand band that I've talked about plenty of times here before. Their new album dropped last week. Absolutely brilliant. They just keep getting better and better and better. And it's a blessing to see bands not phone it in and try to do the same thing over and over again. They're really being creative and stepping outside and just doing some amazing stuff.
Awesome.
Next is a band called Mud Whale. Name of the album is Humans Pretending to Be Human. They're like they're out of Cleveland, Ohio. They're like I'd say like emo, grunge-ish alternative band. Really good stuff. And then last but not least is a band called Names Without Numbers. We Create Reality is their most recent EP. They were banned back in early 2000s. Went away for a while, got back together. They're out of Omaha, Nebraska, and they just started like doing it again, which makes me very happy. When there's old stuff that I loved and the bands like come back and start creating new stuff is pretty special. And their most recent EP, We Create Reality, is pretty special. So go check those 3 things out.
Yeah, I definitely will. I know the best and they're great, but I didn't know those other 2. So definitely will be checking those out. Thank you.
You're welcome. But, the thank you goes to you, Carter. Again, I said it at the beginning, but thank you for being here. And most importantly, thank you for creating the amazing music that brought me to you. Without that, we wouldn't be 2 strangers having an hour-long conversation about things that are important to us. And so I want you to know what you've already created and done has made a difference in someone's life, which is mine. So I can't be the only person out there. So I want you to know how important it is what you're doing. And, tagline is, keep creating and we'll keep listening. So don't ever stop.
Awesome. No, thank you so much again, Shane. I it really means a lot to hear that. And I really want to, I always emphasize have a, really strong, intimate connection with each of my fans. And like, I really mean that. And it's really special to always get those really deep conversations. I don't get to do it all the time. So it's really fun when that happens. So yeah, no, thank you again for having me.
You're absolutely welcome. And everybody out there in the world right now, you know what time it is. It's time to go out, listen to Carter Brady, and have a great fucking time.
I give up every day just to see you every night. I relive all the days that were taken all for nothing. Mesmerized by the one who let you down. Taken by the souls that turn me around. I'm not so surprised inside. Sometimes I feel lost. They're tarnished by new students. Right there in the dust, there's all of it rolled down the train. Mesmerized by the one that has you down. Taken by the souls that turn you down. I'm not so surprised inside. I'm not so suppressed inside. Cannot wait to rest my mind from the night. When you're feeling stressed, don't tell me to hide. It's fine. I'm not so suppressed inside. I'm not so suppressed inside. Cannot wait to rest my mind from the light. When you're feeling stressed, don't tell me to hide.
Thanks again for tuning into the Hidden Tracks podcast. We hope you enjoyed this week's show. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram at HiddenTracks99. Also, send all your submissions myhiddentracks99@gmail.com. Tune in next week. You may find your new favorite band, and don't forget to go out and have a great fucking time.